Welcome back. We're continuing with our current events panel, and joining me again are Hannah Salamon-Vegh and Brock Stephenson, both political commentators. Hannah, this one I think would, well, maybe yourself as well, Brock, because I think you have young children, but this seems to be a perennial issue or debate amongst parents and psychologists is how much screen time for young children is appropriate. Is in fact any screen time appropriate? Well, there has been a new suggestions coming out from a study that suggests that preschoolers definitely under two should not be in front of any, and beyond that, that really there are some long-term harms that can come from screens. Why don't you unpack what are the new concerns now, Hannah?
Yeah, so research was published last week in the journal Frontiers in Childhood and Adolescent Psychiatry, saying that using devices for emotional regulation can be effective in the short term, but in the longer term could lead to technological addiction, screen time tantrums, and making it harder for kids to cope in stressful situations. And I think any parent of young children knows that you give them the device, they're happy, and then as soon as it's time to go on to do something else, oftentimes tantrums can occur because screens are highly interactive. They're addictive. They're bright. They're flashy. They're fun. Whether it's like music or games or shows and stuff like that. And I think that this type of research is important, but I think we can just use our common sense that we as adults oftentimes struggle with addiction, whether to social media or Instagram or stuff like that. So when we have fully developed brains, if it's hard for us, then how hard it would be for children to be able to regulate themselves. And as parents, it's our job to regulate how much screen time they have, especially when they're very little. So I think that parents that put their children in front of the screen just as a babysitter, like that's a huge concern and could result in issues down the road.
And I suspect that this may have peaked during COVID because all of a sudden you had parents
Hmm.
who lost their childcare, and then they're also working from home because everybody's quarantined and remaining in their own place, and the work has to still go on. The Zoom calls still have to happen, but then there are these toddlers. Brock, do you feel that things may turn? It seems to be like a lot of evidence is piling up. I mean, I just see screens everywhere. You go to a restaurant, kids are in front of
Hmm.
screens as they're ordering. Do you think this may reverse that trend?
I don't know if we'll see a reversal in the trend. I understand parents that need 5 minutes break from their child while they're trying to do something, but the screen has become something that people are very dependent on. I don't think we're to the point of TikTok for the toddler set, but I think that we do have a problem that kids are getting hooked on screen time younger and younger. Recommendations for some ages are 0 minutes a week, which is probably impossible in 2024. But I think what we really see is that a lot of the applications that you're using is particularly as you get into high school are very addictive. So
Mhm.
starting them at age 2 or younger is a bit of a problem. It's one thing if you're going to the doctor's office and need your child to behave before they get a vaccine or something, but I think it's something else if you're giving your kid cereal and a tablet to start the day every day. And I think that's where we're struggling. I think that people need to sort of show a balance. I know it's tough, particularly for overstressed parents, but I think that we should try and keep screen time to a minimum, which I assume is less than all waking hours, despite what the medical experts may say.
Okay, let's switch gears. Brock, I'm going to stick with you. There's a Supreme Court justice who Quebec is demanding recuse himself as there is a court challenge on Bill 21. Can you explain what's going on here?
So the new Supreme Court justice who's been recently appointed is Justice Mahood Jamal, and he represented a civil liberties group before the courts on an earlier case, and they're arguing that he should recuse himself. And under the old system, people would, I guess, do what was right and step aside for the good of society. But we're not sure if this is going to happen yet. There's some pressure from some groups, some women's groups, as well as some other civil liberties groups that think that he should recuse himself in this case. So far, nothing's happened.
But, I think about this, and I spent some time over the weekend pondering this case. Uh, everybody has their bias and personal opinions. Yes, he formally represented a challenge, so we all know the client that he had or with whom he worked for. But could it not be said, Hannah, that pretty much every judge will have bias on every case? I mean, aren't they supposed to be? Or isn't it supposed to be that the law is blind?
Yeah, every judge is going to have a bias on every case, like you said, and also depends on like which government appointed a certain judge, right? Like since conservative governments appoint judges now, liberal government has appointed a lot of judges. Um, And yes, I know he represented the Civil Liberties, Association on this case, but we'll see. We'll see if he recuses himself. At the end of the day, I think that every judge is going to have a bias in a certain degree towards something or against something just by mere fact of being a human, let alone, maybe having involvement in the case. We'll see in what direction he steps in, but we hope that he can be unbiased, as judges are supposed to be. They're trained to be unbiased, no matter what case is coming before them.